I'm Robert Shaler. I'm from the United States, in Colorado. And I run an organization called the Handmade Film Institute, which is dedicated to, we have week-long retreats in which people can immerse themselves in the world of handmade filmmaking. But I thought I would, and I hope it's not too much of a deviation.
We have no image yet.
No, sorry. You're quite correct. Thought I knew what I was doing, but I didn't. Sorry, so,
the second screen.
oh, it's the second screen, sorry. I'm going to do this.
Just put mirror. Get a window? Mirror.
Sorry, gather. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So now, yeah, there we go. So I thought just before we'll follow along with what Esther was just saying about making. I want to talk about two subjects that I've been involved with. The first is actually a second one that I've been involved with. Is what we've been doing for the last few years is making silver gelatin emulsion, silver halide emulsion. I had always, for years, I actually started in the non-silver world. I started with the weird stuff because I figured, well, the commercial film world's already making film stock with silver halide, and why not just buy it? Recently, though, two things occurred to my mind, and one is it's not just me. It's in fact, commercial film is ceasing to be produced in as much abundance and variety by the commercial world, right? The commerce has all gone digital. So because of that, it puts experimental filmmakers, like artist filmmakers, at risk because we can no longer rely on using the sort of tails and short ends and leavings. We can't ride on the coattails of industry anymore because industry has gone off into something else. If we want to keep working in celluloid film, which, by the way, it means a lot to me as an artist, and I think to many other artists too, because it provides this unique combination of tactile reality. It's this material, it's these little pictures, and who was it that said you can stomp on it and you can, was that Brian? And you can pick it up and it's still there, right? It's so it allows the body to actually get involved. You know, you can do whatever with your body that you want with it, and it's still an image. Whereas with digital, it's just you're sitting in front of a computer. I don't know, do people know Tom Tomorrow's The Modern World cartoon? I don't know, this is cartoonist from San Francisco who, I remember years ago seeing a cartoon that he did. He has this penguin character, and the penguin characters, in the early days of the internet, he's on a computer, and he's describing what he's doing, and he's on these grand flights across the universe. He's exploring unknown knowledge, and then somebody comes in on the last frame and says, "You're sitting in front of a computer." So anyway, this is really provides it allows you to be both physical, but then also to make these completely intangible projected images that are completely unreal. So I find it almost mirrors the human condition in that sense, that you have a foot in this messy material world But you also have a foot in this pure, immaterial world of projection, these ghostly images. So anyway, so this is very much the material world. It's my extremely messy shed. And I put this up because it reflects an odd discovery. A year and a half ago in Paris, right, we came up with this recipe for emulsion. And I was very excited, having done it. And I went right back, and another fellow who was there, Richard Toohey, he came to Colorado. This was like a week afterwards. And we very excitedly set out to recreate the emulsion. It failed. It was completely fogged. And for the next year, every single time I tried to do anything more complicated than the simplest emulsion, it came out fogged. And I realized I live off the grid in the mountains. Sorry, is it really going to do that?
Just push the button now.
Yeah, it does. I'll just have to keep moving the mouse around, I guess. As I know Kevin is aware, it's been reported that the presence of sulfur dioxide interferes with the formation of emulsion. And I live off the grid with only solar panels and batteries. And the battery bank is in the basement where the darkroom is. And I changed all my chemistry and nothing, it just still didn't work. I got new silver nitrate, new potassium iodide, different gelatins, and it never worked until I decided, maybe it is the sulfur from the batteries. And so I moved to production. I figured out how to make emulsion just in a 35 millimeter film can, which you don't have to use the dark anymore, right? So in the darkroom, all you do is you just mix up your solutions. It's A, B, and C for the fancy emulsion. The A is the gelatin and gelatin and potassium bromide and a little potassium iodide. Solution B is the silver nitrate and water. And solution C is just more gelatin that you add at the end. And you can mix those all up in the light, and I do that, in the darkroom in the basement. But then you put solution A inside that stainless steel container there. Let's see, this is going to less. Oh, come on. There, you can see a sort of better view. And you put the silver, you have half the silver nitrate in a little jar and half in that burette. And then you dump it in the top. It was made for still processing, so it's light proof. And you just drip it in. And the process, and it worked. It totally solved the problem. So it's a kind of finicky process, I think. Because then when you finish doing that, then you have to coat it. And so I coat differently than Esther does. I'll be interested myself to hear how everybody is coating film. But I built a little version of what was called the mini Mad Box. It was Stefan, wasn't it? Who developed this? Guillaume did, yeah. Because they were trying to build a big fancy machine that would do coating and would roll it up all at the end and it would come out dry. And it wasn't done. And so we came up with this thing, and it just puts the film down into a jar and sends it back up. And I figured I had a problem that I had to put a roller up on the ceiling, because I found that working by myself, I couldn't make it go, it more or less went flat from the emulsion source to the roller, and it would just drag emulsion out onto the table. Whereas I discovered that if I could make it go up and then down, that completely solved that problem. So then, the wheel, so that. The wheel is motorized, right, the drum. It's just made of the little thing that you pour cement into, a sonotube, which I coated with urethane. Yeah, that's another one of those, and that's what that looks like in a box that's light proof, which is very handy because you can close the lid and turn the lights on, and then you don't have to worry about it. You can let it dry for days if you want. And then before that, though, I guess this is out of order, you have to wash the emulsion. This is what the quick emulsion that only takes 10 minutes, that's a huge advantage in some way, because this takes days. Like, you mix it up one day, you let it sit in the refrigerator overnight, then you have to wash it. And I built this little apparatus that has, you put ice water in the blue bucket. And cold water comes in through the black tube, and it goes to the ice, and it comes in to the bottom of the other blue bucket. And then you cover that with like this pot that it's light proof. I had to put an air vent on that, otherwise it would go down. And then there's a thing, the other part of the trash can that I cut up goes around the outside. And then you put the lid on, and then it's light proof. There you go. I'm trying to minimize time in the dark, because time in the dark means making mistakes for me. It's really frustrating to have spent several days making something, and then you make one little mistake. You flash the lights on, and oops, oh well. Anyway, so that's I'm going to show two films later this evening. One is made with this whole apparatus, and I didn't have that much time. I only finally figured this out about a month ago. I finally got all of this to work. Like, I got the thing outside to work. So I'm showing the very first film that I ever made. Went all the way from start to finish using a homemade camera, which I also have somewhere. But and homemade film. So we'll see. Anyway, but that isn't where I started. Where I started was I was a grad student in first in music, actually, but I transferred to fine arts, and I was a grad student in photography because there was no film program in Colorado. Colorado did have Stan Brakhage, who's a great experimental filmmaker, and that's why I stayed there. In fact, my darkroom was across the hall from his office. It was really nice. But he never actually taught filmmaking. He taught film history. But I became his projectionist every Sunday afternoon for 6 years. It was really great. But anyway, there was a faculty member at the University of Colorado named Melanie Walker. And Melanie Walker specialized in non-silver photographic processes, historical photographic processes. And I just started, I was not her student. I was like a graduate student at the first from the music school. And somebody said non-silver emulsion, and that just stuck in my head. It's like, what? Like, you can make pictures out of something other than silver? I thought that was just so cool. And so I actually I was friends with somebody who was a student of hers. I said, hey, show me how this works. And so she showed me how to do a process called gum printing. Now, gum printing, I'm happy to say, it is possible to make full, 3, 4, 5, 6 color images that are registered exactly the same way. Right now, today, we could do it today. The only problem is that it requires a conceptual separation of two aspects of color imaging. One is the camera process, right? That you go out into the world and you capture colors, the way they are. But the other part is how you create color that you put on your film that people watch, right? There's no necessary connection. And you alluded to this, Esther, that you're not interested in real color, that you want to go beyond that. And I think it's very important to keep in mind that we don't have to capture the colors in order to make films that are in color, right? The colors that we make don't have to correspond to anything that was ever in the world. This is, I think, a conceptual limitation that comes from color photography, the way that the industry developed it, right? The idea was realism. Let's depict things as they are. But in a way, that's a conceit. That why should art be constrained to the slavish imitation of things as they are, or to somebody's idea of what the representation of reality would be. I mean, we should consider ourselves free, I think, to put out anything we want, and it can have whatever relationship to reality, in as much as that makes sense to say as we want. So gum printing, though, has great potential to, you can actually do, you could start with a panchromatic black and white film, do a 3-color separation, then print red, green, and blue layers using gum printing. You could easily do that. You could project that result. The camera, though, I looked at Wikipedia, always interesting, announced, and I had never even bothered to try to figure this out, but I was really amused to see the number. The ASA, light sensitivity of gum print emulsion, they listed as 0.003. So it requires generally, you know, a 4-minute exposure in direct sunlight. Like you do a contact print and you put it out in the sun for 4 minutes. Or if you have an artificial ultraviolet light, which is really what it's sensitive to, it takes 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So it's a really laborious process. So I made this plexiglass board that you can kind of see. And the way I did it is it's about 4 feet, it's a little more than 4 feet long. So I would have these strips of negative, these are negative strips, that are about 4 feet long. So I would shoot in a regular camera, cut it into 4-foot sections, put these little white tails on, which are reinforced with sound splicing tape. And then you have similar strips of clear film that also had emulsion on it, just, you know, gelatin on it. And you coat it with a foam brush I found worked the best, with this gum print emulsion. And then you let that dry in the dark. It's not very light sensitive. Then you contact print with the negative that you shot. And on this board, I made this registration board that had these little pins in it that hold it side to side, and pins on the end that hold it end to end. And it allows that you can re-expose the same piece of negative. Usually I found that you wanted to do it at least twice in order to get a decent density. Gum printing is a whole world unto itself. It's very interesting, I think. And you use this very bright, I use this very bright light, ultraviolet light, which this picture, by the way, when I took this picture, I had to I mean, even going like this, it hurt my eyes. You never want to look at that.
Is it like a sunbed tube?
What's that?
Is it like a sunbed tube?
Yeah, these were like these really fancy